to school time. It's the most wonderful time of the year for many, and for some, it's a time filled with anxiety, fear,
and murder.
At least, that's what it's like for the characters in the following horror movies I'm going to discuss in today's video. That's right, today I'm talking about some of the best school-related horror movies, back-to-school slashers, if you will. What I love most about this subgenre is that it perfectly captures the essence of what it's like to be a student in school, whether it be high school or college, the unknowing, the desire to fit in and not feel like an outcast, or maybe being an outcast and being okay with it. Plus, adding in a little blood and guts. So settle down, kids. Class is now in session. First up is Night School from 1981. Night School is a 1981 slasher set in Boston during a series of brutal murders targeting female students at a local night school. The victims are all decapitated in a ritualistic way, and soon suspicion falls on one of the professors. What I love most about this movie is the Boston setting, and that might be because I'm from Boston, but I just love that it's rich in atmosphere, and Boston is one of the best areas for schools, so getting to follow a group of women going to college in the area was really cool, and I found the premise to be absolutely terrifying. A killer targeting college women in the local area. How can you not find that terrifying? I found the protagonist also to be very likable, and the killer's motivations to be really unique and interesting. Next is The Prowler from 1981. The Prowler is a brutal slasher following a group of college kids who were targeted by a crazed World War II veteran with a pitchfork who was wronged by his girlfriend 35 years prior. This film, it was a recent watch for me, and I was shocked at how dark it was. This film is mean, it's bleak, it's gritty, and it is violent. There are some kills in this that absolutely disturbed me. This is due in large part to Tom Savini's special effects makeup. They look real. It feels like you're watching a snuff film, so go into this one with caution. Next is Slumber Party Massacre from 1982. Slumber Party Massacre takes place during a high school slumber party where a bunch of teenage girls are targeted by an escaped convict armed with a power drill. This feminist horror slasher was written and directed by a female, and it showed. The group of female characters feel very real and genuine and like actual people, actual friends. So you can't help but connect with them and want to root for them and also want to be friends with them. They don't feel like just eye candy without personalities. They have thoughts and desires. They're even flawed, but even though they're flawed, they're still likable people. It's also interesting to note that the killer is murdering girls with a long drill that sometimes dangles between his legs. So there's a little bit of symbolism there, if you get what I mean. And the fun fact about this film is that it was originally set to be a parody of the slasher genre, but it was shot like a straight horror film, and so there's bits of humor that are kind of awkward and uncomfortable at times, but I personally loved it, and I think this movie is a great watch. It was a recent watch for me, and I absolutely loved it, and I was surprised by how much I liked it. I had put it off for years because, judging by the cover, which I know is not always good, it seemed like it was just going to be another straightforward slasher watching a bunch of girls get killed, but it is not that. It is so much more. Next is Tragedy Girls from 2017. Tragedy Girls is possibly the most disturbing horror slasher in the last decade because it feels very plausible. Tragedy Girls centers around two high school best friends who were obsessed with crime and growing their online presence. After they catch a serial killer and go viral, they realize that the best way to stay famous is to commit the crimes themselves. This satire looks at the effects of social media on impressionable young minds and the strong desire many have to become famous. What's most terrifying to me about this film is that the two teenage girls speak and act like real teenage girls. They feel like real teenagers that you would see in your daily life. And I feel like we've seen news stories over the years of teens or a certain individual putting themselves into a dangerous situation for fame, or trying to go viral on TikTok, or a person committing dangerous acts or crimes to go famous online. So it makes this whole film feel very real. Kids, specifically teenagers, are scary. And teenagers with social media and a desire to become famous are even scarier. Next is Christy from 2014. This understated slasher is set on Thanksgiving break at a local college where a young girl named Justine is targeted by a trio of masked killers who invade the deserted campus. Haley Bennett's performance as Justine is what makes this film stand out among the rest. She is strong, intelligent, determined, and she's brave as hell. She's resourceful, and she's a character that you really want to root for, and she doesn't back down from a fight, which is pretty awesome to watch in a slasher film. She turns the tables on the villains, and it's just so much fun to watch. There are some pretty cool kills in this, and the empty college setting during Thanksgiving break is just super unsettling and atmospheric. Next is Prom Night. Prom Night follows a group of high school seniors who are targeted at their prom by a masked killer seeking vengeance for their accidental death of a young girl 6 years earlier. This disco-fueled slasher stars Jamie Lee Curtis, and it has some pretty interesting kills. This is a classic and it's beloved by many. It has its faults, but I do think it's enjoyable to watch. And who doesn't love mayhem set at prom? Another prom-related back-to-school horror is Carrie from 1976. Carrie follows a sheltered and bullied young girl named Carrie White who discovers she has telekinetic powers. While struggling to come to terms with being a teenage girl and having powers, Carrie is invited to the prom, where things take a very violent turn. This film is based on the Stephen King novel of the same name, his first novel, and it's very sad. It does a great job at fleshing out Carrie's character and showing her trouble connecting with the other students, and she's bullied both at home and at school, and you just can't help but empathize with her and root for her. So when Carrie makes some questionable decisions, you can understand her decisions, and she becomes kind of an anti-hero in this film. And I think that this film perfectly captures the true horrors of high school, where there's people who are willing to make your life a living hell if they just don't like you for whatever reason. And that's what makes this story truly disturbing to me, is how real it feels. It's a just phenomenal atmospheric horror film in general, but when you add in the high school element in the massacre at prom, it just is on another level. Next is Happy Death Day from 2017. Happy Death Day follows a mean girl college student named Tree who is murdered on the night of her birthday and begins reliving the day repeatedly. She sets out to find the killer and stop her death before it's too late. Jessica Rothe stars as Tree in this film, and her charming performance is what elevates this movie above all slashers. She's so charismatic and likable, even when she's being kind of a bitch to other characters. But the thing that I love most about this is that she grows throughout the movie. Her character experiences growth with each day that she's reliving, and she learns a lot as you're learning a lot, and it's just wonderful to watch her transform from a mean girl to a very real, likable person that just happens to have a lot of flaws. This film's silly premise has a wonderful message about being a better person and truly cherishing the things that you have in your life before they're gone, before it's too late. Next is Freaky from 2020. Freaky centers around 17-year-old Millie, who is bullied by her peers. Soon she becomes the target of a serial killer known as the Butcher, and they magically switch bodies. Millie realizes she has 24 hours to get her body back, or she will be stuck in the body of a middle-aged maniac forever. This slasher comedy is a fun spin on Freaky Friday meets Friday the 13th. Vince Vaughn is hilarious as a 17-year-old stuck in the body of a middle-aged man. He's so charming, and he just perfectly captures the essence of a teenage girl. And then on the other hand, we have Katherine Newton, who is just a total badass, and she's this confident, takes no shit from anybody girl. She also likes to kill people, so it was really fun to see each of those actors switch roles and do it so well. There are strong themes of bullying and being an outcast in the high school setting, which is something that is so real. It's stuff that people struggle with every day in school. This is more about learning to be okay with yourself and not caring what other people think, even if society doesn't like it. And it gives this slasher comedy a lot of heart. Next is Idle Hands from 1999. This stoner comedy follows 17-year-old Anton Anton, a slacker with no ambition. His hand becomes possessed by the devil and begins killing off his high school classmates one by one during the Halloween dance. This film is filled with tons of slapstick comedy and gore, and it's just an outrageous, charming slasher comedy of the 90s with a lot of heart. There's an awesome 90s cast featuring Devon Sawa, Seth Green, and Jessica Alba, and there's an awesome 90s fueled soundtrack that you won't be able to get out of your head. And the fact that it's set during Halloween is an added bonus. Next is Scream from 1996. Scream centers around a teenage girl, Sydney Prescott, who becomes the target of a masked serial killer. This is Wes Craven's classic that reinvented the slasher genre. This film is very self-aware, and its characters are very self-aware, and it pokes fun of the slasher genre and tropes often found in the slasher genre while also paying homage to them and celebrating them. There are some really chilling moments, hilarious moments, unforgettable moments in this film, and really memorable lines, and one hell of an opening scene. Next is Jennifer's Body from 2009. Jennifer's Body is a horror comedy centered around a teenage girl who becomes possessed by a demon and develops a taste for the flesh of teenage boys. This film didn't do well upon initial release due to its wonky marketing, but has since grown a cult following among the horror community, and for good reason. It's really good. The witty and whip-smart dialogue from Diablo Cody makes this film stand out, and the performances from Megan Fox and Amanda Seyfried add some extra charm. While on the surface, this is a horror comedy about a girl who is killing boys, this film depicts the dangers and abuse that women often face from predatory men, and the negative ways that we're often treated by society. Next is Ginger Snaps from 2000. Ginger Snaps is a Canadian horror film following two outcast sisters, Ginger and Bridget, in the mindless suburban town of Bailey Downs. On the night of Ginger's first period, she is savagely attacked by a wild creature, and her body slowly begins to change. Soon, Bridget embarks on a mission to save her sister before it's too late. This charming, smart, low-budget werewolf film packs a lot of bite. See what I did there? Get it? This is a metaphor for a girl experiencing puberty, and it perfectly captures the angst of being a teenage girl, the insecurities that you feel while your body is changing and you're getting different kinds of attention from the opposite sex. It's just such a well done film that has so much complexities to it, and it's not just a straight up werewolf film. And the thing that makes this film stand out the most to me is the chemistry between the two sisters. It's just fantastic, and you feel like they're really sisters or best friends even, and you just really want to hold them and you want to make them feel better. And I feel like that's a lot of the case when you're an adult looking down on a child in school who's going through something difficult. It's really not up to you to save them. You can't really save them. All you can really do is watch and let it happen. And yes, you can offer support, but you can't fight for them. You can't stop what's happening to them. And I think that's an interesting idea that this movie explores really well. Next is The Faculty from 1998. The Faculty is a sci-fi horror following a group of high school kids who find themselves in the middle of an alien invasion occurring at their high school. This film not only gave us Josh Hartnett, the beautiful Josh Hartnett, and his wonderfully messed up hair, it gave us an incredibly funny and inventive take on the alien invasion movie set in a high school. It feels like a mix between The Breakfast Club and Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and it's so funny and charming. And the cast is just, the ensemble cast is so likable, and I love that they come from all different friend groups and walks of life, and just getting to see them go together and just play off of each other is just so fun and exciting. And like Scream, these characters are also self-aware of the films, the sci-fi films, so it just makes the film even more fun to watch. And it also has an incredible soundtrack, 90s soundtrack. It has some really memorable scenes, some gnarly scares and kills, and an undeniably attractive cast. This is just a 90s staple for me, and I think for a lot of people in the horror community. And lastly, we have Disturbing Behavior from 1998. Disturbing Behavior follows Steve as he moves to the idyllic town of Cradle Bay and quickly learns that some of his classmates are very odd. and they all act the same. He quickly befriends a group of misfits, and together they uncover the disturbing truth behind the popular kids known as the Blue Ribbons. This film feels very much like an extended episode of The X-Files, and that's for a good reason. It was directed by David Nutter, who was also a director and producer of The X-Files. The cast in this is beautiful. We have Katie Holmes in her prime, James Marsden, who is just gorgeous, and Nick Stahl, who plays the perfect alternative guy, I guess you would say. He looks dirty, but you still want to make out with him, you know? And he's just so smart, and he's a character that kind of knows everything. And there's one particular scene in this that I love where they're sitting in a cafeteria and he's going through all the different cliques and groups and describing them, and he has this friend with him who is kind of odd, but he's so endearing. And that's the thing about this film. It's so endearing. They don't speak like normal teens at times. Like, I feel like they were trying to make certain words a thing that were not. But that's one of the things I love about it, is that it's just so bizarre and weird. And it's just fun. I love that there's a sense of danger for all of the characters in this film, and there's a sense of paranoia because you don't know who to trust, or the characters don't know who to trust, because even their parents are involved in this bigger master plan because they don't get how dangerous things are. And I love that. I love that the parents in this are just making the situation worse for their kids. And often that's what it's like in real life. It's a teenager's nightmare, and I love it so much. And there you have it. Those are some of my favorite horror back-to-school slashers or back-to-school horror movies. I know that there are a ton out there, so I wasn't able to touch upon them all. I haven't seen all of them. Particularly Cherry Falls is one that everybody raves about. I haven't seen yet, and I would love to. And there's Slaughter High. There's just so many high school related horror, so please let me know your favorite down below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I will catch you next time.